How Kremlin television replaces reality with negotiations. Another act of a geopolitical play was played out on the air of the Big Game program on August 6, 2025, in which the Russian authorities are both directors and main characters. The occasion is a meeting in the Kremlin between Vladimir Putin and US presidential envoy Steve Witkow. The Russian viewer is supposed to believe America is once again bowing to the Kremlin, and Russia is the only adult in the room. In fact, we are looking at a carefully constructed information structure. Its task is not to inform, but to inspire, not to negotiate, but to put pressure. And not only on Ukraine, but also on Europe, where the Kremlin is still counting on the erosion of political will, fatigue, and fear. Perove. Who is the Kremlin playing against? The program directly identifies the enemies: the Nazi Kiev regime, the European patrons of Ukraine, and, especially, the US deep state. They are the ones accused of sabotaging the world. Europe is portrayed as weak, hypocritical, and dependent, strangling Trump in its embrace, but does not influence decisions. Kyiv is completely devoid of subjectivity. Only Washington, or more precisely Trump, can steer out of the conflict, if it wants to. This technique is part of the Kremlin's traditional rhetoric, to simplify the picture of the world as much as possible. Good Trump versus evil Biden. Rational Russia versus hysterical Europe. Negotiations are possible, but only if the West recognizes Russia's interests. Second, manipulation of the idea of realism. An important point in the program is the attempt to present the Kremlin's conditions as realistic. It is said that Russia has already proposed several specific initiatives, but the US rejected them. Which ones exactly is not specified. At the same time, under the guise of realism, they are proposing the actual capitulation of Ukraine and the lifting of sanctions against Russia without withdrawing troops or stopping aggression. Against this background, the realists in the Trump administration, like Witkow, are portrayed as almost saviors of the world. Their task is to save Trump from missing the deadline, to extend the chance for compromise. Realism here is a euphemism for concessions to Moscow. Third, undermining European will through repetition, humiliation, and fear. The program emphasizes European leaders are not subjects. They play with someone else's cards. They have no policy of their own. This is addressed not only to the Russian viewer. This is a signal to European societies. Your governments are powerless. They are just puppets, and therefore you should not trust them. At the same time, the narrative of fake support for Ukraine is being voiced again. The rubble left by Biden. Negotiations are impossible on Kiev's terms. There is not enough compromise. All of this is an attempt to erase the line between aggressor and victim, blur the cause and effect relationships, and cause fatigue in the European viewer. Fourth, conclusion: no peace. Only an image of peace. The program does not offer peace. It offers an imitation of efforts in which Russia is constructive. The West is irrational, and Ukraine is not a subject. All of this is not diplomacy, but an information weapon aimed at lulling vigilance, counting on the internal contradictions of the West and the fact that tired societies will prefer illusory reconciliation to real resistance to aggression. And he said completely opposite things, very often, yes. And by and large, I think that he is unlikely to leave with anything positive because our position, the longer the special military operation drags on, is quite obvious. There is practically no talk of any, such initiatives related to negotiations with Kyiv on their terms. Therefore, I think everything depends on how they can now find a compromise, at least at the level of these negotiations. Because I think that a negative result, as they say in the press, can simply infuriate Trump. Well, Oleg Kwandirovich, what is your opinion? Indeed, I think that Mr. Witkow is one of those who can be called realists in the Trump administration. If we personally asked him his opinion, his point of view, I think that he would not be against agreeing, maybe not to all of our conditions, but to most of our conditions, and signing some kind of agreement. Another thing is that Witkow, he also does not make all the key decisions in the Trump administration. There are many different camps there. Well, and it is not for nothing that we have recently seen a large number of leaks in the American press about the fact that there is a camp of conditional economists who fear that if relations with Russia are normalized now, this will hit American business, in particular the oil and gas business, which will lose its position in the European market. And they seem to be whispering their specific things to Donald Trump. In my opinion, we are now seeing mixed signals from the current Republican administration. It is critical for Europe to understand that behind the seemingly moderate rhetoric of Russian broadcasts, there is a strategy of constant pressure. Their goal is not negotiations, but coercion, not compromise, but capitulation, and at every stage, not dialogue, but a spectacle.